Evening all, welcome back to EVE Online. So, today this is going to be a continuation of last time's video, which is, I guess, a further diatribe around whether or not Titans are terrible or not. Now, one of the things that I find is a useful character of my psychological personality or persona is that I actually never think I'm always right. And this is something that in today's society is so useful. Let me just talk very quickly on this. One of the things, like, look at President Trump. He is so certain that everything he does is right because from a very young age he was always told he's right and he's a wonderful little boy. If you didn't like the butler, we can get rid of him. You know, it's always been given this incredible platform where he just thinks he's right. I didn't have that. I came from very humble upbringings where what I kind of very quickly realized is that there are people in the world who will just talk and completely have no ability to see the other side of the argument. And there's also people who will just talk and say, I know I'm right, therefore I am so confident that I'm right, therefore you were wrong, therefore I'm going to burn an effigy of you right now. And I don't take that. I am completely in the middle ground. I guess I'm one of those annoying people that will quite happily let you try and convince me that you're right. So I've been reading the comments on that last video, and I think maybe my comments are misunderstood. So I'm going to be very open and honest and say I think some of the points are incredibly good. They really do make a great point. I think some of the fun that people must be having in these 300 Titan battles, I mean, it's amazing. I remember when I saw 20 Titans together, it was unbelievable. So I do get it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Titans are terrible as in they're bad now. I'm saying that the original concept of the Titans is kind of gone. So one of the things that I like to do is we do a lot of this in my professional world. We do use cases. So we always try to understand what the point of something is in commercial software or anything like that. You try and figure out what would be the point of doing a feature. And one of the key things that we do is we try and understand the user case. Now, what CCP decided was things like Titans they needed because you have to have an end game for people. There has to be the carrot and the stick to keep people going, because if you have a scenario where let's say the biggest ship in the game was the Dread, and once you got the Dread you would probably most likely quit. This is why so many people who got their Titan after I built it for them, they'd try and sell it back to me about a month afterwards because they're bored and they quit the game, and a lot of them just logged off with it. I gave away probably in my time maybe 3 or 4 Titans to my own corporation, and every single one of them about a month later never logged on again. And it was the stupidest mistake I could have made. This is one of the kind of real benefits of hindsight, as you start to realize that some of these mechanics don't work. So the title of this video is actually called We're All Jedi's Now, and this is really the subtext of the argument, is to say Titans, when the use case of them was created by CCP, and I remember sitting, like I say, with this very rotund chap in EVE Fest, and he was one of these kind of lead designers or whoever he was, and he basically, while very drunk and slurring and literally flying ash from his cigarette all over the place, he was telling us how, you know, Titans, the point of Titans would be that you would have a clone bay on them so your entire corp could warp to them or clone to them. You would have a fleet hangar base, you could then grab a ship and then you would go and fight. Titans would never really be on the field unless it was the most direst of situations, and they would be a mobile station that would go around the deep space with you. The premise of having more than 2 Titans was pretty much not included in that design statement, and it really was just something that I think originally was designed to do that and has now become something else, because right now it's a giant fleet ship. So really what the Titan is today is really just something that has got so many hit points. It can do so, it literally can cock punch from a mile away, and it hits you so freaking hard that basically, you know, you lose your teeth. And that's kind of where it's got to now. Yes, it does bridging, and that's always been in the game, and that was always the intention of it, the ability to move a fleet through a jump portal. That's great. But it also had remote doomsdays, remote area of effect doomsdays. And the point of that was it was this constant disruption of the fleet formation by trying to keep people off balance. And I remember doing those. Oh, and by the way, fleet doomsdays through a sino while the ship's in a pause. That's literally what used to happen. So the whole design statement behind Titans was pretty stupid to begin with. What then very quickly happened, I feel, is that the they underestimated how dedicated the player base of this game are, because they always said it would take a team of 20-30 people to build a Titan. I build them on my own, and I mass produce the bloody thing. So for that statement, they got that completely wrong. I don't think CCP understood the scale of capability of multi-boxing in this game. So I play this game usually with about 10 accounts running. Not always, you know, when I say 10 accounts, you know, doing things like industry and stuff like that, and market manipulation and all that fun stuff. But if I fly my Titan, I usually have, you know, a mothership or a super carrier. Sorry, old school here. You know, you have like maybe a couple of triage carriers ready on standby as well, and then you have your Cyno Scouts. So that's 5-6 accounts, you know, and that's usually what I ran, you know, pretty much to be sure that you're not going to lose a Titan. Never lost a Titan. Never lost a super carrier. I only lost one carrier in my entire time playing EVE, because it was a bait, because I knew it was a trap, so therefore I had to spring the trap to get rid of them so I could jump the Titans through when they'd all buggered off. So it's fun, you know. This is kind of my feelings, is that the Titans, don't get me wrong, are not terrible, let's say, in terms of what they can do. It's terrible with what they've become. The problem is, I don't know if you remember Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies was not a bad game, very similar to EVE in a weird way. Probably not actually, but it was a you know a MMO on the ground, running around, grabbing loot, grabbing missions, whatever, grabbing stuff and then doing stuff with it and blah blah. And then all of a sudden they released the JEDI'S, and everyone was quite annoyed because only a certain group of people were made JEDI'S, so they made more people JEDI'S. And basically, you know, and again, I'm not too au fait with the story, and I'm probably quoting mistruth here, but for the subtext of the conversation is that they made a lot of people JEDI'S, and people would create a character, see if there was any Jedi trait. If not, they'd reduce it, and then all of a sudden everybody's JEDI'S. And that's exactly where EVE is today. Everybody's kind of got this super carrier, super Titan stuff. Not everybody, but you know, the vast majority of people have decided that that is the way to go. Let me give you a case study here. If you're, well, when I lived in deep space, one of the things I was always quite concerned of was the odd band of gangs of people flying around to gank people. So they were looking for miners, they were looking for people running complexes or whatever those anomaly things were, and they were basically just, you know, pretty much looking for, you know, people to go kill. Now what's interesting is the things like super carriers are now used for ratting, and because they can hit so freaking hard, you know, heavy fighters, like I can't remember who it was, but somebody said in our Discord, you know, they've got the speed and agility and locking of a cruiser, and they hit like a battleship. Well, that's pretty cool. So, you know, and you've got 5 of them or 3 of them or whatever. Then you've got to kind of look at that and say, well, that doesn't make sense, because if there's no risk of being ganked, really, you know, you'd have to be ganked by a capital fleet, and there's not exactly, you know, roving bands of capital fleets every freaking day. Well, there are, let me be clear, across the entire map, I mean. And I think that's the difference. For me, it kind of made me sad that that was the way of things now. Other thing that got me was I was watching something, apparently a load of botters are using super carriers now, and what they have built this incredible regime. I don't know how they do it, but they built a regime of nixes that are warping into these, I guess, anomalies, and then they're just literally running them continually, completely AFK. And when you realise that that is where the game is today, I think that's what kind of made me think, yeah, they're not great. I'm not saying I'm right, far from it. Am I saying I'm right that all Titans are terrible? God, no, because they're fun. I love, you know, literally shooting that just a moment ago. But it just makes me feel that, you know, there's definitely something that would need to be done to address the proliferation of Titans, because, I mean, the build numbers versus the loss numbers are still very much in the growth stage. So I can't really see the ultimate conclusion of this. You know, where does this go to? Do we then have 6,000 Titans in system trying to kill a station? Well, it probably do. But, you know, that's kind of a crap game when we're all Jedi's. What's the point of the game? And I think that's the issue, is that, and, you know, I know there's always going to be thousands of people in subcaps. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being flippant with this one. I promise it's just this feeling of what they originally were intended to do versus what they are today is vastly different. And I think that's it. Subtext, finish, close, drop mic, off we go. That's it. I hope you enjoyed that. We will see you next time.